Have you ever felt you were trying too hard just to get noticed? Like you had to be more, do more, and talk more simply to get someone's attention, approval, or respect? And after all that work, you were still left feeling invisible, drained, and somehow less than enough. You're not the only one. Many of us fall into the trap of thinking that the more noise we make, the more people will see us. But the reality no one shares is that true magnetism isn't about trying harder. It's about gracefully letting go. When you cease reacting to every minor issue, when you're no longer swayed by your emotions or the desire to please, a powerful shift occurs. You start to radiate a calm strength and presence. You have nothing to prove because you've accepted who you are. This is the core of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that has helped leaders, warriors, and thinkers navigate chaos with inner freedom, self-mastery, and stillness. And today, you will learn why being non-reactive and detached isn't about being distant or cold. It's magnetic. You don't need to chase. You simply need to stand still and let people be drawn to you. 1. Non-reactivity is the ultimate magnetism. Some people can walk into a room and, without a single word, command attention. This isn't because they're boisterous or seeking the spotlight. It's the exact opposite. Their calm presence and quiet confidence make them stand out. In a world that's becoming more chaotic, where most people are swept up in knee-jerk responses and emotional reactions, the capacity to remain calm becomes a quiet yet potent magnetic force. Not reacting isn't about not feeling. It's about mastering your emotions to the extent that you can choose how you respond. This is a form of strength no social skills course can teach you. That silent, unmistakable strength is what truly sets someone apart. In Stoic philosophy, non-reaction is not indifference. It is the ultimate expression of inner fortitude. A person who is easily swayed by their emotions remains at the mercy of their circumstances. But the one who pauses before they speak, who observes before they react, that is the person in true control. In crucial moments, that control is often the difference between success and failure, and sometimes, literally between life and death. Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger isn't famous for his motivational speeches. He is remembered for maintaining an almost supernatural calm when both engines on his aircraft failed in midair. While panic erupted among the passengers, Sully didn't react with emotion. He didn't allow fear to control him. He acted with speed, clarity, and precision, safely landing the plane on the Hudson River and saving every person on board. That wasn't a miracle. It was the outcome of decades spent training to make calmness a conscious reflex. Are you training? Yours. What's fascinating is how frequently we react without even being aware of it. Have you ever found yourself in an argument and just stopped? No defending, no explaining, no attempting to prove you're right. Initially, it can feel like giving, like surrender. But if you sit with that feeling of discomfort, something different emerges. A steady stillness, a quiet space from which you can start to see things with more clarity. The most captivating people are not the most eloquent speakers. They are the ones who understand when silence is best. We have all been wounded by someone's words, and our immediate instinct is often to retaliate, to defend ourselves. But have you ever paused to ask, what exactly am I protecting? My ego? My image? Or a version of myself I'm not ready to release? When you are calm enough to not react, you see that you aren't losing anything. You are protecting your energy. You are refusing to give someone else control over your emotions, as if they were holding a remote. Seneca once wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If you react to every piece of criticism, every news update, every ripple of drama, you fragment yourself into pieces, and each piece becomes a vulnerability. But if you remain centered, solid, grounded, and silent when words are unnecessary, you become unshakable, unreadable, and profoundly magnetic. Try this simple exercise. The next time someone says something that triggers you, just pause for 3 seconds. Don't speak, don't roll your eyes, don't even flinch. Sit with the feeling and notice where your impulse wants to go. Then choose what's worth saying, or choose to say nothing at all. That's a 3-second superpower. And here's the twist. The less you react, the more clearly you perceive others. When you aren't led by emotion, you begin to sense what's really driving people. Anger often masks fear. Excessive talking often hides a need for validation. When you see that, you stop. Reacting, you start understanding. And from that understanding, you lead. True presence doesn't come from your appearance. It comes from what remains steady inside you while the world tries to shake you. It's not lit by a spotlight, but is forged in the dark moments you walk through. Without losing yourself, and once you've felt the power of non-reaction, you'll realize this. Behind that calm lies something deeper. A kind of quiet that not everyone has, but everyone is drawn to. We'll meet that stillness in the next lesson, where you'll see that in a noisy world. Silence is the loudest voice. 2.com, minds command attention. Have you ever considered what has become the rarest thing amidst the blare of car horns, buzzing, phones, collaboration invites, and an endless scroll of updates? It's not attention, it's not success, it's silence. What was once our natural state has become so unusual, it can even seem suspicious. Go silent for 3 days online, and people start asking, is everything okay? But silence isn't always a sign that something is broken. Sometimes it's the clearest. Proof of strength. In an era where emotions are engineered for engagement, someone who knows how to stay silent isn't just humble. They're someone who refuses to be dragged into a noisy battle everyone else thinks is important. No knee-jerk reactions, no desperate opinions, no fear of being misunderstood. That's a rare kind of magnetism, because when the crowd fights to be heard, the one who stays quiet makes everyone lean in. When intentional, silence becomes a kind of stance knot, a wall made of stone, but one built from self-control and awareness. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him, who performed the injury, not reacting, not lowering yourself to answer what's beneath that's confidence at its highest level." And nothing pulls people in like someone unmoved by the chaos around them. Keanu Reeves isn't a Stoic philosopher, but he lives like one. He doesn't over-appear, he avoids pointless arguments, and he doesn't chase the spotlight like most celebrities. And that's exactly why people can't stop talking about him, despite him saying almost nothing. In an entertainment world where everyone's yelling to be seen, the person who steps back and speaks less becomes the calm eye in the storm. But this isn't just about celebrities. Think back to that one colleague you worked with, the one who never interrupted in meetings, who only spoke when it mattered. When they talked, the room shifted. Have you noticed that the words of a quiet person land 3 times harder than everyone else's, not because they're smarter, but because they know when not to speak? We often confuse reacting with responding. A reaction is instant, impulsive, and predictable. A response is slow, considered, and often surprising. Real influence doesn't come from speed, it comes from depth. That's why people who stay grounded in chaos make us feel safe and trustworthy. They're not blown around by the crowd. Silence isn't just a wise move, it's an ancient virtue, even echoed in the Bible. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. If even a fool seems wise in silence, then what about you? Someone with reason, depth, and discipline. How will you use silence as your power? If you want to master a silence that carries weight, start with small steps. When you're about to fire off a defensive message, stop for 5 minutes. Delete it. Rewrite it as if you were a calm stranger. When someone insults you, look them in the eye, but don't say a word. Stay silent not to endure, but to show that your presence doesn't require a reaction. When you stop letting emotion hijack you, you start to control the whole room. Sometimes what earns you respect isn't what you say, it's knowing when not to say anything at all. In today's world, silence isn't background, it's the exclamation mark. And if you learn to be quiet at the right moment, you won't just become more compelling, you'll become more trusted, more unpredictable, and yes, more dangerous. Silence is the beginning. But if you've ever feared that pulling back might make you feel left out, it's time to flip that idea. Because the next lesson is this: distance isn't emptiness. It's the territory where your inner strength gets forged. And once you've walked that ground, you won't need anyone to validate your worth ever again. 3. Letting go makes you powerful. Not cold, have you noticed? That we're raised in a world that teaches us that if we're not seen, not heard, not agreed with, we cease to exist. So, we react, we explain, we resist. We live as if we're standing in a darkened room, waving our arms desperately, hoping someone will switch on the light. But the Stoics are different. They don't require light from the outside. They create their own. This light isn't the kind of dazzling brightness that captures all eyes. It's steady, quiet, and persistent. And it begins with one simple yet difficult decision: to let go of the need for recognition and to live as if you are already whole. Even if no one is watching, not everyone can grasp that kind of detachment. To many, it seems like emptiness, but for a Stoic, it's the very source of strength. Detachment isn't about avoidance or turning your back on the world. It's about refusing to allow the world to control you. It's the act of shutting the mental windows we often leave open for criticism, applause, and opinions, so we can preserve that space for ourselves. True detachment doesn't make a person cold. It simply means they no longer exchange their inner peace for attention. The less you require others to validate your worth, the more that worth becomes real. Ask yourself, if every compliment vanished tomorrow, would you still believe in your own sufficiency? David Goggins, a former Navy SEAL and author of Can't Hurt Me, once described how he trained by himself in the dark, with no praise and no cheering crowds. People only began to notice him after he had already transformed into a machine. That wasn't isolation. It was a deliberate choice to live with intensity, free from any emotional reliance on others. He ran hundreds of miles with torn knees and blistered feet, without vlogs or stories, just silence. And because he didn't need an audience, people grew even more curious. His detachment created an air of mystery, but the true magnetism wasn't the mystery itself. It was the fact that he didn't need applause or permission to exist. The ultimate freedom is not doing anything you want. It's not being compelled to do what you don't want. When you're no longer bound to the opinions of others, you become genuinely free. And that calm freedom, that quiet confidence, is what attracts people. True presence doesn't shout, it radiates, and the most powerful energy always originates from the stillest place. Try this the next time you find yourself explaining something just to make another person comfortable. Pause. Ask if it's truly necessary. If you opt for silence, what do you stand to lose? If the answer is nothing, you may have just safeguarded a piece of your own power. That power isn't loud. It's like gravity unseen, but undeniable. Today's world insists that if we're not constantly visible, always replying, and perpetually reacting, we will be forgotten. But because everyone else is in a state of constant reaction, those who step back, who don't feel the need to show up all the time, become rare. They are the pause in a loud song, the period at a long sentence's end that makes you stop and think. Detachment is not emptiness, it's where strength is amassed. It may not be noticed right away, but once you begin to live this way, you will feel it. Less tension, less fear of judgment, and less craving for approval. You don't show up to be accepted. You show up because you have already accepted yourself. And that transforms how others perceive you as well. So, which life will you opt for? Showing up to be seen, or standing still to go deeper? When you choose detachment, you don't vanish. You become unmistakably clear, and then you'll discover something more profound. Sometimes it's what you don't say that compels people to listen. Silence, when it has weight, can command an entire room. But that kind of weight is not accidental. It begins the moment you stop reacting, stop explaining, stop speaking just to be heard. But that's another lesson about why, in a world drowning in noise, silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. For your silence disarms more than your words. There are moments when speaking up doesn't make you feel understood. It just opens you up to judgment. The more you attempt to argue, the further you are dragged into a game set by someone else, a game where the winner isn't the one who is right, but the one who is loudest. In a society that mistakes the speed of a response for strength, the individual who remains silent, not out of passivity but with intention, becomes the person people truly listen to. Nobody teaches us how to remain silent. We are conditioned to react, to defend our egos, and to win arguments. But we are seldom told that not reacting can be a potent form of control. This isn't because you have nothing to say, but because you realize that saying it would achieve no real purpose. Silence is not weakness. It is a counteroffensive that no one anticipates. You pull your energy out of the conflict, allowing it to extinguish itself. Not every fight is worth the price of your inner tranquility. understood this concept deeply was Barack Obama. During his presidency, he was frequently labeled as passive or media. However, this was not a sign of lacking courage. It was a deliberate strategy. He steered clear of direct confrontations with the press, kept formal briefings to a minimum, and instead chose to appear in settings where his voice could feel more human and unscripted. Politico described it as a soft media strategy, a method to circumvent the clamor of political debate and communicate directly with those who were not interested in the shouting match. Ironically, this quiet approach frustrated his critics, who suddenly found themselves with no target. When they shouted into the void and received no answer, they were the ones who ended up isolated. Stoics do not speak just to react. They don't engage in arguments simply to prove a point. They grasp that most conflicts arise when egos clamor to be right, and the larger the ego, the more easily it can be manipulated. The silent person is not numb, they are aware. They know that emotions don't need to be defended with words, but rather protected with discipline. Have you ever lost your temper in a group chat, snapped back at someone online over a single irritating comment? And did that ever truly make you feel more respected or just more vulnerable? The faster we react, the more predictable we are. The more we master silence, the more disarming we become, because when you refuse to react, you give your adversary no ground to launch an attack from. That is the move of someone who truly understands themselves. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." True strength does not come from deflecting every attack. It comes from being unmoved by what does not merit your energy. Let others show their hand through their reactions. As for you, there's no need to jump into the mud just to prove that you are clean. It sounds straightforward, but it is not easy. Remaining silent during an argument is like clenching your fist while a crowd urges you to throw the first punch. It requires inner clarity. I am silent because I am in control, not because I am afraid. And the incredible thing is, others can sense that even if you don't say a word, if you wish to practice this, begin with small steps. The next time someone says something that makes you want to snap, don't. Just breathe. Take a mental step backward. Ask yourself, is what I am about to say motivated by truth or by my discomfort with feeling powerless? If you are uncertain, don't say it. A single unnecessary sentence can cause more harm than 100 apologies can mend. Don't let silence be a void. Let it be a space that you command, a pause that alters the atmosphere in the room. In meetings, try not to say anything for the first several minutes. Watch, listen attentively. You will see people reveal their insecurities, intentions, and pressure points. And when you do finally speak, a single sentence might change everything. Most importantly, silence makes you magnetic. Not in a flashy or charming manner, but in a way that makes people wonder what you are thinking. When you speak less, every word you say gains weight. When you don't hurry to respond, your presence deepens. People are not drawn to noise, they are drawn to mystery. If you have read this far, congratulations. You are not just watching a video. You are training your inner power. Thank you for your patience. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing not for the algorithm, but because this is a space where you can continue to sharpen your mind, steady your heart, and build a presence that's hard to shake. Stick around till the end. Each piece matters if you want to not just understand Stoicism, but live it. 5. Boundaries aren't walls. They're standards. People often think that to be liked, we must always be agreeable, perpetually available, and constantly accommodating, always saying yes. But consider this. How do you truly feel when someone agrees? With everything you say, without a second thought? Perhaps a little annoyed. On the other hand, isn't there something quietly potent about a person who can say no calmly and clearly, without anger or long-winded justifications? That kind of presence doesn't arise from pleasing others. It comes from having boundaries. Individuals who establish boundaries know themselves. They do not allow others to compromise their core values. They don't overreact, but they also refuse. To be controlled, they can smile and still say no, and that garners them respect, not resentment. Because boundaries are an unspoken statement of dignity, and in a world that is increasingly loud and superficial, dignity is magnetic. You can observe this clearly in Serena Williams. Under the glare of flashing cameras and the immense pressure of public expectation, she guards her inner space. When the media becomes too intrusive, she doesn't lash out or get involved in drama. She steps back. She establishes a line. She continues to be a fierce athlete and a fighter, but never at the expense of her privacy or autonomy. That is why she is not just respected as a champion. She is admired as a complete, grounded human being. In Stoic philosophy, setting boundaries is not merely a communication tactic. It is evidence of a mind that has been trained not to falter. When you are clear about what you will and will not tolerate, you stop being carried away by the emotions of others, because you have already made a decision. This is what maintains my peace, and this is where I will stand to protect it. So, how can we apply this to real life, where colleagues make unreasonable requests, friends overstep, and partners attempt to manage our emotions? The solution is not to become cold or distant. It is to be steady and unequivocally clear. For example, you decide that you will not reply to work messages after 9 p.m. Some people might complain initially, but if you remain consistent, they will learn to respect it. Not because you compelled them to, but because you taught them how you expect to be treated. Here is a simple yet powerful tool. Whenever someone makes a request, don't give an immediate answer. Pause, breathe, ask yourself, if I agree to this, am I honoring my own values, or am I just afraid of being disliked? This question not only helps you manage your response, but also gradually transforms the person you are becoming. There is a truth that many people overlook. The more deliberate your boundaries are, the more freedom you will experience. Because you are evading responsibility, but because you are choosing to live your life based on what is genuinely important. You are not reactive or dependent on the approval of others. You are grounded because you have learned to protect what is essential. So, what occurs when you say no? Some people might be upset at first, but in time, they will respect you. They will perceive you as someone who cannot be easily swayed, which makes you more difficult to reach, more enigmatic, and more trustworthy. 3 characteristics that foster a deep, lasting attraction that no physical appearance alone can create. Now, ask yourself, have you ever said yes just to prevent upsetting someone? Have you ever felt depleted because you failed to draw a line? If so, when do you plan to change that? Start with small steps. Decline an unreasonable meeting. Let a message go unanswered for a while. Say, I need more time. These seemingly insignificant moments are the foundational bricks for building a version of yourself that is self-possessed and powerfully compelling. Because once you learn to maintain the proper distance, something peculiar happens. People start wanting to move closer, not because you attempted to attract them, but because you didn't need to. A person who sets boundaries possesses a quiet edge, and that is where the next lesson starts. Mystery and unpredictability. Not something you can fabricate, not something you can perform. It emerges when you cease trying to prove yourself and hold on to only what is truly yours. 6. Unpredictability is irresistible. When your grounded humans are instinctively drawn to what they cannot fully comprehend, our minds are wired for curiosity. We are fascinated by the ambiguous and the unpredictable. Familiarity loses its charm quickly. What is too simple to decipher soon becomes unappealing. This is why individuals who constantly display their emotions, who react the instant they are provoked, end up revealing too much too quickly. They forfeit their mystery. And mystery is precisely what sustains attraction over the long term. We often believe that being compelling requires being articulate, witty, or boldly expressive. But genuine magnetism doesn't stem from what is spoken. It comes from what is withheld. The person who understands when to be silent, who keeps a portion of their thoughts and feelings private, and who can remain composed under pressure, becomes an enigma. And that enigma creates a pull. People are drawn to them, yet they are hesitant to get too close. There's a quiet power in that space, a sort of invisible gravity. But becoming that kind of person isn't about faking detachment or putting on a show. It is a disciplined decision, rooted in profound self-awareness. You don't hold back because you're afraid. You hold back because you feel no need to put everything on display. The Stoics taught that true depth comes from realizing you don't always have to speak. Real confidence isn't dependent on being seen. It comes from knowing who you are, even when nobody is looking. You can observe this in the most ordinary moments. a work meeting, a chat with friends, a family dispute. The one who speaks the most is often not the one who is truly being heard. People may listen to them out of obligation, not desire, but the ones who sit quietly, observing, taking notes, and withholding judgment, when they finally speak with clarity and conciseness, the entire room pays attention. They don't take control of the moment. They alter its rhythm by not forcing their way in. This kind of presence is not born from words. It is born from restraint. Stoicism doesn't advocate for silence as a tool for manipulation. It teaches silence as a means to protect your freedom. When you react too hastily, you cede control to others. All they have to do is strike the right nerve, and you lose your composure. But when you know how to pause, when you don't rush into anger, when you don't jump to defend yourself or scramble to prove a point, you start to create a space that no one else can control. And within that space, you regain control over yourself. Practicing this doesn't demand a complicated method. Just choose to pause. When someone says something irritating, let it hang in the air. When someone offers praise, don't nod too quickly. When you're asked a question, take a breath before you reply. These small silences construct a quiet layer around you. And in that quiet, people start to listen to you in a way they don't listen to others. You won't have to speak much. Your presence alone will have weight. A person who controls their own pace is no longer swept up by the noise of the world. They are no longer drained from trying to please, trying to be understood, or trying to win. Approval. They begin to live from the inside out, and from that place, they stop trying to be attractive. They simply become attractive because they don't need it to define them. Ask yourself, how many of your daily reactions are truly essential? How often do you speak just to break a silence? How often do you overshare? Not because someone inquired, but because you couldn't bear not being noticed. And if you learn to live for a day without explaining, justifying, or reacting, what would be left? That remaining part that is the real you. And if you can live like that, clear-headed enough not to react, grounded enough to hold something back, and steady enough not to yearn for the spotlight, you will begin to understand this. People won't be drawn to you because you lack something they can provide. They will be drawn to you because you are already whole. Go next toward a life where you are no longer performing for attention, but are living as a complete presence, needing nothing from the outside to feel complete. 7. Confidence comes from wholeness, not neediness. Lion doesn't have to roar to establish that it is king. It glides through the savannah with silent steps, and every other creature feels its presence long before it is seen. In the human realm, a similar kind of power exists, one that doesn't originate from follower counts, slick talk, or performance. It comes from something that has become almost extinct in our digital era, a soul that is not hungry. True magnetism doesn't arise from how many heads you can turn. It comes from the quiet confidence of remaining whole, even when no one is paying attention. People don't discuss this often because it cannot be sold. There is no metric for inner wholeness. No amount of likes or views can quantify it yet. It is what we desire most in others, even if we are not consciously aware of ita fullness that doesn't need to proclaim, I am here. The Stoics understood that if you have to pursue attention, it was never genuinely yours to begin with. Attention that is earned through performance is perpetually indebted to the expectations of others. It might arrive quickly, but it will leave just as fast because it was never grounded in the real you. It was borrowed from trends, gossip, and fleeting glances that were never intended for you. And when you become accustomed to living in the glow of someone else's spotlight, you forget that you are always a source of light yourself. So how do you become that type of person? Not by compelling yourself to appear calm or by pretending not to care, but by cultivating an inner life so rich and steady that your ego no longer requires inflation from others. Start with the smallest of actions. When you find yourself replying to a message simply to avoid seeming cold, pause and ask, am I acting from a place of clarity or from a fear of being judged? Before you post something just to garner likes or to prove that you are doing well, ask, can I allow my peace to exist without needing public validation? This is not about severing social ties. It is about cleaning house internally so that you can connect from a position of abundance, not of need. Inner wholeness does not come from hollow affirmations. It comes from a deep, daily discipline. It's like giving yourself 10 quiet minutes each morning with no phone and no expectations, just to observe whether your mind is calm or restless. Over time, you will find that some insecurities don't need to be fixed. They just need to stop being fed, and do not underestimate the power of saying no to empty chatter. No to hollow compliments, no to behaviors that bind you to the approval of others. Each time you say no to what is hollow, you are saying yes to what is real. To the part of you that understands that peace does not require proof. Don't be afraid of being misunderstood. Even Jesus was misunderstood. He said, "Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them." You do not have to explain your integrity. Simply live it and allow it to speak for itself. The most magnetic individuals are not those who have everything. They are the ones who have stopped chasing everything. When you stop pursuing attention, your own light begins to shine. When you stop reacting out of habit, your presence gains gravity. Not everyone possesses the courage to live in this manner. But you can start right now with a simple act, choosing not to react when you don't have to. Stop seeking attention. Start building presence. Stop polishing your image. Start living with depth. No one can take your wholeness away from you unless you willingly give it up. And when you hold on to it, you don't just become magnetic, you become irreplaceable. We have just explored 7 reasons why being detached and non-reactive can make you incredibly attractive. But if there is one thing you take away from this video, let it be this: you do not need to chase approval to be valuable. You just need the clarity to stop giving your energy to what doesn't deserve it. Each lesson is a piece of the puzzle, learning to master your emotions instead of letting them master you. Pausing before you react, stepping back from the noise, and breaking free from the need to be seen or validated. You have started to reclaim your inner axis quiet, steady, and unshakable, and that's when something shifts. You no longer reach outward to prove yourself. You radiate from within. If something in this video has stirred something deeper within you, a desire to live more intentionally, more powerfully, more freely, then leave a like as a quiet promise to yourself. And if you are ready to walk this path with us, the path of strength, stillness, and stoic clarity, then subscribe to the channel. The journey is far from over, and we will take the next steps together.